Have you ever watched an interview go completely off the rails? You're about to. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Brian Tyler Cohen tries to keep the debate on track, but Katie Pavlich quickly changes the subject. Watch what happens next.
Across the country, students are using ICE's efforts to enforce the law as an excuse to walk out of class. So far, hundreds of K through 12th graders have gotten detentions or suspensions over the protests, but it isn't just the kids who are putting on a performance. Take a look at how one group of dancers protested ICE by reenacting Renee Good's final moments. Not sure I want to know how long it took to rehearse that, but joining me now is Brian Tyler Cohen, progressive YouTuber. Brian, great to see you again. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Do you think that the dancing is really a productive way to get reforms of ICE that the left is calling for?
I think everybody should speak out in the way that they can be most effective. And so if dancers want to dance, then good on them. If there are students who want to walk out, good on them. If there are legislators who want to actually do something, good on them. We can all do our part. And I don't think that we should be, saving smoke for people who are trying to, offer up what little they can to draw attention to this, when there are other people who are just basically apologizing for ICE's overreach.
I mean, I do agree. I mean, I'm glad that they're not screaming and interrupting federal investigations
or shooting people in the face, for example. Or
operations where ICE agents are trying to go in and remove pedophiles and rapists and murderers from communities, blowing whistles in their ears. I agree. I'm glad that dancing is a better form of peaceful protest. But last week, we saw an unprovoked attack on a mother in an unpeaceful protest, leaving her covered in bruises. She was outside of a school and attacked by kids who were not in school. Why is the left radicalizing these students to not only leave school, where the country has a 54% rate of not being able to read, in order to go out and then attack people who are just asking them to calm down?
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree that literacy scores in this country are pretty dismal. And in fact, the lowest literacy scores in this country are in red states run by Republican governors and Republican legislatures. So I definitely think that's a big problem to consider. I mean, if you look at places like Oklahoma, for example, if you look at places like Arkansas, I mean, these are, Mississippi, Louisiana, these have the lowest test scores in the country. But that, I'm assuming that's not what you want to speak about.
I'd be happy to talk about Mississippi. It's actually much better than the majority of the blue states in this country in terms of education. It's actually a great story about education, but that's not about ICE, which is what we're talking about now.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think you really want to have an argument about the test scores in red states versus blue states. But
I'd be happy to have you back to have that conversation. But I don't think kids should be leaving school to go and protest ICE when they can't read, write, or do arithmetic.
Look, I think that we have a very important First Amendment right in this country. And if kids want to use what platform they have to step out of school to protest the overreach of a tyrannical government and a lawless rogue agency, then I support their ability to do that. Again, look, you're going to find individuals who are going to be violent, and you're never going to see me defend anybody who brings violence into the situation. So I'm not going to defend that. And certainly, there are people everywhere who are going to resort to violence, and I think you and I can both agree that that's not acceptable.
I would agree,
regardless of where it happens.
Yeah.
But if in terms of kids walking out of school, I'm completely I think civics in this country is obviously very important, and if kids are going to be paying attention to politics, paying attention to what's happening in their country, I think that more power to them if they can walk out. I think if athletes at the Olympics have something to say and use that platform, more power to them. The more people that can speak up. I mean, I am not of this mind that had gained a lot of traction in Republican circles where athletes are just supposed to shut up and dribble. We have a long, proud history in this country of people like athletes, for example, standing up at the Olympics going back decades and decades and decades.
Yeah, well, it's good that they live in a country where they have those rights.
Use it.
That is true. It's good they live in a country where they have those rights.
And in fact, one of the most important rights is not to succumb to a tyrannical government. And in fact, that's something that you've been saying for years and years and years. I'm looking at a tweet from 2013. Anybody who believes the United States can never be a tyrannical state has their heads in the sand. So that issue used to be important to you, and yet now you have a rogue agency killing people with impunity. We're not going to see any justice for Renee Good.
We got to take a second and take a step back. Okay, first of all, Renee Good arguably tried to run over an ICE officer with her car. So you say that you're not for violence. There's lots of video showing that
we
almost ran him over.
We know what it looks like when somebody turns the steering wheel to the right.
In terms of the issue of tyranny, you brought this up last time you were on the show, so I'm happy to bring it up again.
What about Alex Preddy?
Well, there's Alex Preddy was at a protest 2 weeks prior, ICE, and got violent with the officers, kicked out a tailgate, then went to another one. But let's get back to the point.
So kicking a tailgate 11 days prior is justification to kill somebody?
Okay, there's an ongoing investigation. The point is, if law enforcement would have done its job by arresting him and enforcing the law, he wouldn't have been at the second protest where he was trying to get in the middle of a federal investigation, which is a bad idea. Not to mention that officials, including the lieutenant governor in Minnesota, were telling people to go out and put their bodies on the line to commit felonies by getting in the middle of federal investigations, which is a terrible idea.
By ICE agents. We all saw the video of Alex Preddy being approached by ICE agents.
We also saw the video of him weeks prior agitating and getting violent with ICE agents, which you just said that you're against violence.
Kicking somebody's car is not justification to be murdered.
Getting involved in the middle of a federal investigation is a felony, okay?
Do you think kicking someone's car is adequate justification?
Democrats telling children to leave school when they cannot read or do math, which is going to be detrimental for their future, telling them to leave school to go protest ICE with no end in sight, and telling people to put their bodies on the line, as they did with Renee Good and Alex Preddy, is not a good way to change things in Washington. The way you do that is by coming to D.C. and talking about the differences and what they want to change. I would have loved to talk to you about that tonight, but you wouldn't let me get to the point. So Brian Tyler Cohen, it's great to have you. Thank you for coming on the show. Next time, hopefully we can have a cordial back and forth instead of talking over each other. Thank you very much.
Let's take a second to unpack what just happened. The moment Brian Tyler Cohen brought up that old tweet, you could feel the tone of the interview change. Instead of debating the original point, the conversation shifted into a debate over consistency. Cohen's argument was simple. If you warn about government overreach in one context, shouldn't that principle apply consistently? Then came the pivot. Rather than staying focused on ICE, the discussion moved toward student literacy and school walkouts. Whether you agree with that shift or not, it changed the focus of the debate and pulled attention away from the original question. And finally, notice how the interview ended. Both sides talked over each other as the exchange became increasingly tense before the host wrapped things up by saying they could continue the discussion another time. It was a dramatic finish to an already heated interview. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think the interview ended because they simply ran out of time, or because the conversation had reached a point where neither side was going to change the other's mind? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching.